Ah, look at Alina running across the beach, so carefree and playful. Another day in oh my goodness, that's me. Right, DJI and GoPro have given us their latest and their greatest action cameras, but if I had to guess, I'd say about 90% of us don't really use these action cameras for extreme action purposes, more for general purpose travel, vlogging, family videos, holiday stuff, YouTube content. You get the idea, so we're going to look at these cameras from that perspective and try and help you figure out which one is best for your needs and your wants. Upon launch, both of these cameras were criticised for their poor ability to dissipate heat and their short recording times as a consequence. Now the dust has settled, I think the best way to summarise this is if you have a use case scenario where you expect to shoot at high frame rates and high resolution for long periods of time, especially in high temperatures where there's no airflow around the camera, yes, you need to be aware of this issue. Now, because today we're talking about travel films and vlogging, that situation doesn't really come up. GoPro themselves say that 75% of the clips recorded on their cameras are under 1 minute and 10 seconds. I for one can't imagine a scenario where it would ever be necessary to shoot 4K 120 frames per second for 5 minutes. The GoPro certainly takes the win here, but for today's travel vlogging discussion, you're going to be fine with both. Both the GoPro and the Action 2's primary module are sealed units waterproof to 10 meters. Because the Action 2's front-facing screen module and power module have open USB-C ports and microSD card slots, these units are not waterproof if you use them in combination with the primary module. Some people got a bit stressed about this, saying the Action 2 is not waterproof, it's not dustproof and so on, but it is provided you just use the primary module. This will limit you to the internal battery, but you can use your secondary module to charge your primary module as you go. And as for the restricted memory, you can transfer those internally recorded video files to the secondary module's micro SD card. Whilst there's certainly a convenience to the simplicity of GoPro's traditional form factor, there's also a convenience to the new modular design introduced by the Action 2. It's only when you use it that you realise just how convenient it is to be able to take it off a ball head mount and attach it to a magnetic lanyard, for example. No need for fiddling around with the traditional threaded GoPro mount. When it comes to outright durability, GoPro takes the win. It can take some serious knocks and you have a replaceable lens cover. The Action 2 certainly feels a little bit more mobile phone than action camera, but do keep in mind when we're connecting to the secondary modules, you have the magnetic connectivity and the clips. The physical connection and the magnetic connection makes this a pretty robust unit that more than meets the requirements for today's vlogging discussion. In a vlogging setup, both of these cameras have front-facing screens. Given that the Action 2 has a super bright OLED touchscreen that gives you full control of the camera, it is far superior to GoPro's front screen, which is for monitoring purposes only. Both of these cameras take excellent but very different video. We'll get into that in a minute, but first up, let's talk about something that's equally important: audio. Audio from the internal microphones is excellent on both of these cameras, provided there is no wind. When there is wind, as you would expect, things get a little bit tricky.
Oh, the wind is back.
This is an audio test with the wind reduction off on both cameras. This is an audio test with the wind reduction off on both cameras. This is an audio test with wind reduction on for both cameras. This is an audio test with wind reduction on for both cameras. Another nice touch on the Action 2 is if you're using the front-facing screen module, you can isolate the front-facing microphone, getting rid of some of the noises that might be taking place behind the camera. In this example, you can hear the wave noise from behind the camera is reduced. This is wind reduction on, but we've got it front-facing microphone only. It might be a little bit better, doing away with some of the noises behind the camera. Given that your audio quality is as important, if not more important than your video quality, you're going to want to consider connecting an external microphone to your action camera. With the GoPro 10, you need to buy a ridiculously big and expensive proprietary adapter that allows you to connect an external microphone. For the purposes of demonstration, what we've got going on here is DJI's new wireless microphone system connected directly into the Action 2, and there's two sound recorders / microphone transmitters on myself and Alina. At $329, this is by no means a budget solution, but it is an absolutely amazing solution that has universal application from your computer to your DSLR camera to your action cameras to just using the transmitters as standalone sound recorders. Do check out all our other videos on this microphone system. Let's test these wireless microphones. On you go, Alina.
Alina's
testing,
vlogging.
testing,
Wow, she looks
and
so
vlogging,
travelly and vloggy.
and walking, and
Are you
Stewart
chatting?
is not talking anymore, or I can't hear him. I don't know where Stewart has gone. I can't even see him in the screen. Let's turn around for a second.
Okay. Were you talking?
I can't hear you at all.
Okay, why don't you come back?
You can use this or any other wireless microphone system with the GoPro, but again you're going to need that ridiculous adapter and then some way of mounting it all. For a straight out of camera approach with no colour grading, no editing, GoPro's image probably is a bit more accessible. Our strong recommendation is to shoot on the flat colour profile. It is not flat in the slightest, it is still contrasty and saturated, but the image has rich, warm colours. And there's a bit of local tone mapping going on there. It's like a contrast adjustment that takes place at the time of shooting, and it pulls up the shadows a little bit, gives the image a bit of an HDR look. Look at this comparison of a boat. In the GoPro image, it looks almost like we have a reflector bouncing some light to fill the shadow side of that boat. It's a little bit unnatural looking, you could say, or processed, but I actually really like it. By comparison, the Action 2 shot is more typical of what you would expect from a camera. Now the flip side to that is the Action 2 picture quality is actually far superior to that of the GoPro. It's much more akin to a traditional camera with a nice fine grain. When you pixel peep a little bit, you can see all this 3D digital noise reduction that takes place on the GoPro's image. It all looks a bit mushy, to be honest with you. By comparison, we see the fine grain dancing around in the Action 2 image. The traditional approach of the Action 2 made it a lot easier to match our Action 2 footage with our Panasonic GH5 B-roll. We shot lots of slow motion on both cameras at 4K 100 frames per second in our case here in Europe, and both of them look really nice. Traditionally you'd expect to see a real deterioration in quality of the image as you go to those higher frame rates, but both of them look amazing. The GoPro actually gives you 5.3K all the way up to 60 frames per second. There's no 5K on the Action 2, just 4K up to 120 frames per second, something that's matched on the GoPro. The extra resolution on the GoPro is nice, but if you zoom in, it's offset by this 3D noise reduction that's applied, and again, it gives that kind of slightly mushy look compared to the finer grain on the Action 2. Both these cameras have insane electronic image stabilization. I absolutely love it, can't get enough of it, and it is the main reason that we use action cameras. It is brilliant. You can run with these cameras in real-time frame rates like 25 frames per second and the footage is smooth. With the Action 2, you simply have the option of setting Rocksteady to on or off. With the GoPro, you have varying degrees of strength, all the way up to boost mode. Personally, we've found that just setting it to the minimum, setting on essentially, is more than enough for the vast majority of scenarios. GoPro takes the win with horizon leveling stabilization, however, because it is available at higher resolutions, whereas the Action 2 is restricted to 2.7K if you switch this on. In terms of field of view, both of these cameras shoot an extremely wide image if you want to. Now, if you're going for a more natural field of view, that's certainly our preference. The GoPro has a slightly more natural field of view, I would argue. It's a little bit tighter than that of the Action 2's standard D-Warp. Low light performance on both of these cameras is pretty poor, so if you're planning on shooting when it's not that bright, you're definitely going to want to grab a little LED light to illuminate your subject. In terms of battery life, we don't have scientific results for you, but starting with the weakest first is the Action 2's primary module, then the GoPro 10, and then the Action 2 connected to one of its secondary modules. With both of these cameras, however, we would definitely recommend you pick up a cheap USB power bank. Not only will you be able to charge the cameras on the go, but you can also operate the cameras while they are charging from the USB power. In terms of reliability, the GoPro 10 has been okay for us so far, but it's not been without issue. The menu system has glitched out several times on us where you just don't get access to the settings, so a good old GoPro hard reset of pulling the battery out has been necessary. It's not something that would stop me reaching for the GoPro, but unfortunately we're not quite out the woods yet in terms of glitchy, buggy performance from these cameras. By comparison, the Action 2 has served us well, and we don't really have anything to report in terms of glitchy, buggy performance. I think DJI has really got their software sorted before the launch of this camera. So there you have it, folks. As always, there's no such thing as the perfect camera. Different cameras for different needs and different wants and different budgets. Here we've got two good options, certainly from a travel vlogging perspective. It's going to be interesting to hear what you think, though. Do leave your comments below. It's a pleasure to hear from you as always, and we will see you next time.